What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Eye Test, where we simplify your process as a fantasy football manager. Today, we're going over 3 players to avoid in your fantasy draft. Yesterday's video were 3 players that you must draft for your fantasy team. Go back to our channel, subscribe to it, and check out that video. You can also go back 2 days ago and see 3 tips to dominate your fantasy draft. That's right. We're getting super close. We are pretty much a month away for our fantasy draft and probably yours too. The ticker says 29 days until the fantasy draft. I cannot wait. We're getting super close. And you got to make lists, guys. You got to make players of who you want to draft. You got to make players that you're going to pass on that hopefully everyone takes before you, so you don't even have to think about it. Bobby is going to go first today. Bob has a Colts wide receiver bust as his nickname today. And if you're reading on the banner on YouTube, you can check that out. Here's a little tease for you. It's coming right up. There it is. Bob, how about you take it away and explain why Michael Pittman is a player that you must avoid in your fantasy draft?
So Michael Pittman is a must avoid, mainly just because of the Colts quarterback situation. And last year he went in with a lot of high expectations with Matt Ryan starting the season out. He was getting drafted in like the 3rd round, I believe. He was being drafted as a lot of teams wide receiver 1 going into last season. So his ADP has taken a hit. Now he's going in like the 6th round. A lot of people may think, oh, well, it's a deal now because they got Anthony Richardson, Gardner Minshew's in there. But I would still argue that he's not even worth drafting there, not only because Anthony Richardson is a very raw prospect and they typically don't produce a lot of high-end producing wide receivers, and I don't have much faith in Gardner Minshew starting for that long, but also because of the players that are being drafted in his range or after him. There's guys like Christian Kirk being drafted after Michael Pittman. Mike Williams is being drafted after Michael Pittman. So those are 2 guys I would take easily over Michael Pittman. And I'm just going to go over his stats from last year, and they're not pretty. On paper, they're okay, I guess, if you're in PPR formats. He finished as the wide receiver 20 in PPR formats, which isn't terrible, but given his ADP, that's pretty bad from what you were expecting of him. He had 99 receptions, 995 yards, 4 touchdowns, and only averaged a horrible 9.34 yards per catch. And for a wide receiver, if you're under 10, that's pretty bad. He did get a lot of targets. I just don't really see the upside with him. Anthony Richardson, I don't think is going to, unlock Michael Pittman. And I don't think Gardner Minshew is either. And we don't really even know what this Colts offense is going to look like. Michael Pittman kind of seems like the guy to me that's going to be like in the DJ Moore territory for his entire career. Just like, a mid-range wide receiver 2 to, a low-end wide receiver 2 at best. And with guys like that have had wide receiver 1 seasons like Christian Kirk, like Mike Williams going in his range, it's a no-brainer to draft those types of guys over Michael Pittman.
Yeah, certainly. I think having a rookie quarterback can really damage a wide receiver's upside. I follow this guy, Alex Caruso, on Twitter that put out a very interesting stat in June on rookie quarterbacks. And I believe we have 4 rookie quarterbacks this year, yes, that are starting. Maybe if Will Levis does anything. Like, I don't think he's going to start. But so let's just say 3, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, and Anthony Richardson. Over the last 10 years, 13 out of 26 wide receivers finished inside the top 36 wide receivers with a rookie quarterback. So you have a 50% chance that your wide receiver will finish in the top 36. This gets even worse.
That's horrible.
23% of wide receivers finished inside the top 24, and 4% of wide receivers finished inside the top 12. So Michael Pittman, he's going in what, 6th round?
Yeah, like the mid-6th.
So ideally, you're looking for flex players at that point. But to win a league, you need your flex player to be better than a wide receiver 3. You really need them to fall inside that top 24 range, and the odds are just stacked against you, let alone a rushing quarterback in Anthony Richardson throwing the ball. let alone the stats that Michael Pittman had last year. It just doesn't seem likely that Pittman will even be a wide receiver 2 this year.
Yeah, he's past that third year where everyone expects wide receivers to break out. So, obviously, is it possible that he breaks out? Sure. But like he's kind of past that time where it might just be a case of he is what he is at this point, especially given the quarterback situation.
Yeah, I think the big word here for Michael Pittman is uncertainty. And that's what happens with Anthony Richardson. And honestly, we saw kind of a poop year from him last year. And then you throw in Anthony Richardson, that uncertainty is just way too high for my liking to take him in that 6th round.
Dude. Christian Kirk was a wide receiver 1 last year, is going after him. That's ridiculous.
That's highway robbery.
Dude, that's so crazy. Michael Pittman, do not draft. I'm going to head on over to the middle here and tell you the player that you should avoid in your fantasy draft, and that is J.K. Dobbins. Now, a couple weeks ago, I was high on J.K. Dobbins.
Me too.
And part of being a draft wizard is changing your opinions on guys quickly. Don't be afraid to change your opinion. Just because you're high on someone doesn't mean you have to be high on them come draft day. Your opinion should be fluid. And I can officially say I am down on Dobbins. Listen, Lamar's coming back healthy. He got paid. It seems like he's got the back of the Ravens franchise now. And he's got arguably the best set of targets that he's had in his career in Baltimore. Paul, would you agree?
Easily.
It's really just been Mark Andrews and Lamar's rushing upside, of course. But I think that because of the trio of wide receivers that they're working with, let's say they all stay healthy, OBJ, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, and we'll say Rashad Bateman. I do think that Lamar's going to throw a little bit more this year because he can. And he did show that he improved his passing game last year. I mean, he completed 62% of his passes in his 12 games that he played. He had 17 touchdowns. He had 7 interceptions. So it's good, above average quarterback play. He's got another year to a full offseason to throw with these guys now. They're not doing any late additions on wide receivers. They have a full offseason to work out. And I do think that the passing game on the Ravens is going to be much more than the rushing game. I mean, originally I was thinking it's going to be Lamar and JK rushing the ball, but now Dobbins is on the PUP list. He's not showing up to the mandatory minicamp. It almost seems like the Lamar curse got passed on to J.K. Dobbins now, and now he's upset with the franchise. And I just don't think that for a running back going in the 4th round, for all you zero running back strategists out there, I don't think this is the first running back you should draft if you're going by that strategy. In fact, you could be very upset if you go for your first running back, J.K. Dobbins, and maybe he doesn't play that much.
Yeah, I think the big thing here that a lot of people overlook, and maybe this is just because I'm a diehard Ravens fan, but I think he put the NFL on notice. But the Ravens have a great running back in Gus Edwards sitting right behind J.K. Dobbins, who has shown that he can run the football and he can carry the workload. And we just signed Justice Hill as kind of a pass receiving specialist. And knowing John Harbaugh, he does play favorites. If Dobbins lands, in the doghouse, it wouldn't surprise me to see Gus Edwards lead this team in rushing this year.
Wow.
Draft Gus Edwards.
Yeah, I love Gus Edwards.
He's going late to undrafted now. Sleeper has him projected like sub 100 total points. I think that's bogus.
That'll change.
Especially with this new JK news. He just doesn't seem happy. So that's a guy that I think you need to avoid in your drafts. Don't be afraid to change your opinions on players as we get closer to the regular NFL season and your fantasy season, because that will hurt you if you stay high on players when their value is obviously dropping. And J.K. Dobbins' value, not only to fantasy teams, but to the Ravens in general, it is dropping.
Plummeting.
Paul, it looks like you're down on Deebo and I'm down on Dobbins, but let's go ahead and hear why you're down on Deebo.
So of all the takes we've made, I am the most confident in this one. So I am not touching Deebo Samuel in any of my drafts. So just looking at his history, he had one amazing year that he finished as the wide receiver 2.
It's a good year.
That was a great year for Bob, especially besides for that last 6 yards in week 16. But
Yep.
yeah. But Deebo Samuel is never fully healthy. He had that one big wide receiver 2 year. And he is in an offense where sharing is caring. And now you add Christian McCaffrey, a full season with Christian McCaffrey to handle all the rushing upside. So let's just take a look at how much the rushing impacted Deebo Samuel's fantasy output. So he had 365 total rushing yards and 8 touchdowns, which accounted for roughly 85 fantasy points. Those rushing stats were 25% of his fantasy value in 2021. If you take those away and just have him based generally on receiving stats, he finishes as the wide receiver 11 in 2021. So he is barely a wide receiver 1.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a fantastic year for Deebo, don't get me wrong. But now we're seeing an emergence of Brandon Ayuk. We're seeing Christian McCaffrey's in that offense. Brock Purdy loves George Kittle. And Kyle Shanahan is an offensive genius who is going to just pick apart opponents' defense. And sometimes it's going to be a Kittle game. Sometimes it's going to be an Ayuk game. It's going to be a McCaffrey game. There's just too much uncertainty here. And for having Deebo last year finish as the wide receiver 40, Deebo Samuel was the wide receiver 40 last year. For him to be going in the late 3rd, early 4th round of this year is just absolute insanity to me. I'm going to rally off a couple names here, and you guys tell me if you'd rather have them instead of Deebo.
Yes.
Keenan Allen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Calvin Ridley.
Yep.
Yes.
Amari Cooper.
Yep.
Yes.
DeAndre Hopkins.
Yep.
Yes.
Do
Although
I need
he's got
to
a
go?
rookie quarterback.
Yeah, but all right, Terry McLaurin.
He doesn't
Like,
have
I'd even argue Terry McLaurin over Deebo this
You
year.
you could easily argue Terry McLaurin over Deebo. Terry McLaurin is a consistent producer, albeit mediocre up to this point in his career. He produces consistently, and he's the wide receiver 1 on that team.
Yeah.
Assuming that you're not a Dotson truther.
Right. So, I mean, I just named 5 wide receivers that are going a round and a half, even 2 rounds after Deebo's ADP. So I can't stomach the fact that Deebo Samuel, people are literally just thinking about that big pop year he had in 2020. Was it 2021 or 2022?
2021.
Yeah, it was 2021.
Yeah, 2021.
I will say, though, although I would personally never draft him in that range, there would be considerable upside because, as we know with the 49ers offense, Kyle Shanahan leaves his guys out to get injured very often. Not saying it's his fault, but that for some reason, those guys just take a massive beating in the 49ers offense. So if you were to draft Deebo, the only way you're going to get that type of like massive upside is if someone gets hurt. If Brandon Ayuk gets hurt, if Christian McCaffrey gets hurt. These are all guys that, I guess maybe not Brandon Ayuk, but George Kittle has been known to get hurt. Christian McCaffrey has been known to get hurt. Elijah Mitchell is probably one of the most injury-prone players in the NFL. So there is upside there, but to root for injuries to happen, to get that upside, it's not a risk I would take.
Well, and let's not forget the quarterbacks are all injury prone, so he may not even be able to get thrown the ball. The 49ers may be the highest rushing team in the league. Christian McCaffrey may be the quarterback.
Yeah, we saw it in the playoffs.
just running Wildcat all year. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I'm pretty sure Deebo is drafted in the 2nd round in 2022. Talk about a complete bust. I mean, if you can lose your draft in the first 3 rounds. I'd like to do some research on teams that where they finished because they drafted Deebo in the 2nd round. And after a wide receiver 40 finish in 2022, he gets bumped back around. I mean, I think we were just talking about it. Christian Kirk, he's still drafted in like the same rounds that he was last year, maybe a little bit better, but he was a wide receiver 1.
Yeah.
And he's just getting bumped back because Calvin Ridley's getting added to the offense. Like, come on.
I know it makes absolutely no sense. And that goes back to our video of our fantasy tips. So if you want to check that out, go back and watch that. That goes back to my fantasy tips where it's don't chase the top of the draft board. It makes no sense to draft Deebo Samuel at his ADP right now. Just wait. If you want to draft another capable wide receiver later, you'll have a shot at a guy like Mike Williams or Christian Kirk in like the mid to the end of the 6th round currently. So it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And even if you're dead set on having a piece of this Kyle Shanahan offense, do yourself a favor and 4.5, 5 rounds later, grab Brandon Ayuk. He was the wide receiver 15 last year, quietly. He is 25 years old. I think he's got a lot of talent. He spent some time in the doghouse in the beginning of the year, but he pulled himself out of it. And right now, the value is all on Ayuk. Deebo is just way, way, way too early for me when I can get someone who produced way above him 40 picks later, 42 picks later, whatever it is. It's insane.
Yeah.
3 players to avoid in our fantasy drafts: Michael Pittman, J.K. Dobbins, and Deebo Samuel. Comment your players below. Who are you not drafting this year? We'd love to know. As always, guys, go ahead, like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we appreciate a 5-star review. We will be back next week for more content. And let's not forget, next week starts our giveaway. We're giving away something nice. We just need a little bit of your help. We'll have more information, so go ahead, subscribe to our channel so you get alerted when we come out with that on August 1st, which is a week from today. We will see you next week.
Peace. Peace.